Okay, so hello everyone. We'll be looking into this PR by Ryan Ofsky today. This is a fix to some of the RPCs that don't have the usual standard behavior. So these RPCs, there are many ways of like configuring RPCs in the Bitcoin comp. So these RPCs are directly like written in the Bitcoin comp with their respective arguments, and they give us like many kind of various options that we can do with our node or with the Bitcoin implementation. So I'll just give you a rundown of what are the current RPCs uh, configurations that we have. So if I'm using any RPC, right, stop at height. So this stop at height RPC is an RPC that takes an integer argument with it. So if I write some like x integer, or let's write a number for now, let's say 49. So this RPC will take on this number when we are using it. The problem arises when there are bool arguments in the RPCs. So this is why this PR was introduced. So what happens when we have bool RPCs is that we don't have any standardization as of now in the Bitcoin code for like declaring RPCs. So if I want to, let's say, an RPC, one of the RPCs accept stale fee estimates. So this is one of the test only RPCs that devs use, and this is RPC that takes bool arguments. So if I want to let's say activate it, so I can write this is equal to 1, or just I can write accept the estimates and don't give any like argument, then also it will be accepted. So let's say this returns true, this also returns true. And the thing is, so if I write it with a prefix no and write this again, this will return false. And this is how some of the implementations work. Also, another way of like negating this RPC is if I write it with a 0 or a none string. So these two cases, the RPC is negated. Also, another way is like if I don't even write this RPC, so it won't be considered. And now that we have these cases, the last case is that if we write it and then after the argument, we just write like some argument like let's say 49, or I write some string, then this all will return true. So this is a bit of an ambiguity because of how many there are true configurations and how many of them are false configurations. Ideally, we would require only two of them. One can be like just write the argument and then one for true and then 0 for false. So ideally, in an ideal world, a software would have these two standard implementations, but we don't have that. And the reason because we have these is because some of them have old softwares. So old softwares of like say old versions of Bitcoin Core where these RPC configurations were written. So some node operators or users just don't upgrade their Bitcoin core version. So we have to implement these, like we'll have to have these RPCs just to have backwards compatibility with the other versions. And this is like the main reason of why these they were not two standard implementations. So this is probably the main reason, and this PR just is like is trying to change that. So we'll look into the PR. There are 5 commits in total, and there are like two first changes in the function tests, and there are 2 lines added: DNS disabled and then listen disabled. So
Am I audible?
these two are, yeah,
Can you please zoom? The text is not visible. Yeah, perfect.
yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So uh, this adds a string, and this also adds a string. And now there here is the change. So there are 2 RPC. So replace in config is a built-in function in the test node. Uh, in the test node, yeah, here the test framework for test node.py. So we use this test node test framework to like write functional tests, and test node is a framework to like uh, implement a test node for us to run on the functional tests. And this method is used to like change the Bitcoin configuration in of that node. So all the nodes have a bitcoin.conf file, and all the RPCs are written there. And this functions writes us to like helps us like writing manually these RPCs in it. So the first we have bind RPC. So bind RPC like lets us specify an address on our device, and like we'll always listen for like for listen to uh, other nodes or other addresses from that address. And mostly this is used when we are like using Tor in our Bitcoin core implementation, and when we are operating node with a Tor implementation for added privacy. And DNS seed helps us like to query for other peers addresses, like when we feel that we don't have enough connections with us and we would require more, so we can query for more peers addresses to other nodes using this. And uh, these two are like more very actively used in the Tor implementation. So the next line that is changed is that it asserts a debug log as input. So we get a debug log from in info, and we start the node. So this functions lets us like start a node with uh, extra arguments, and there is another place in config. So what happens here is we would like to temporarily disable uh, bind and DNS seed, and why is that is because we don't want any outward connection. So connect RPC is used when we would like to manually add peers, and no connect just like negates connect RPC. This just means that we won't be adding manual connections, so we won't be using these two RPCs if we have in our config file. So this might be declared in this file above this piece of code. So we just are using this, like we are temporarily disabling this by adding a hashtag and then re-enabling after we have like got the info. So now what happens is we are adding DNS seed disabled and listen disabled from here in an array, and we are checking for if this is not in our log. So like this confirm if we don't have an error, this confirms that we have soft disabled these two RPCs. Yeah, so another fact that if you would like to know more about these RPCs, you can just look into this init.py, init.cpp, that is in our Bitcoin Core implementation. So you can see a lot of RPCs with and a short description of what those RPCs do. There are a lot of them. Some of them are like for test or for devs only, and some of them are like vastly used in more production based Bitcoin Core Bitcoin conf files. So if you want to look into these, you can have a look here. Okay, and we are adding another we are adding another we are getting another info from the debug log and restarting the node with a proxy and a DNS seed, and uh, we would expect a no connect log message from the DNS seeding node. So it is defined here. So if connect is there, the DNS seed should be ignored. And uh, if this is like not like happening correctly, it will just raise an error. The next changes are very trivial. We just get info.log. So this implementation, like this commit, is just to check if the no connect implementation is working fine or how it should be working as. So we'll go into the next commit. Yeah.
I have
So yeah.
Like you mentioned that no connect behavior is same as like setting connect equals 0.
Yeah, because no adding no connect would be like negating the connect RPC.
I
Like
see.
adding a prefix. Go on.
Okay, I just saw up there. Could you check the chat?
Okay.
I didn't
So
read. Like if you go to Lounge and click the chat button, like if you hover or above Lounge, yeah, open chat. There are a few questions there. Yeah, maybe you could answer coding piece first.
yeah. Yeah, so what we have is like when we are looking for getting arguments. So suppose we have uh, a RPC. So when we are checking for if the RPC is enabled, So the function is args. So this is the args manager implementation, and what do we have is args add argument, or like if we are checking, the function is arg set, and it will just look for bind only. So it will not look for if there was like address or something written after it. It will only look for bind. Okay, and like it does not make sense to write an is equal to after, because it may be the case that we are adding it is like no bind. So we won't be able to find an is equal to there. So yeah, this is completely intentional. For non-Boolean RPCs, there is a change.
So,
Yeah, so
so it's only Boolean.
yeah, so if it's is equal to 0, will I guess is equal to 0 will work for Boolean arguments, but it will not work for like int arguments, because is equal to 0 can be a valid integer that we would like to parse in the like RPC, and we would not like that. So no connect is being, yeah. So there was an issue raised when this PR was being added. It was by Mafleco with the same intention that we would not like no connect to be changed because of the same reason for this PR. And yeah, so first, like in the first iteration of this PR, no connect was also removed, but now he has added it back.
Okay, so we have to treat Boolean stuff and the other stuff separately. But equal to 0, like RPC equal to 0, is same as no RPC only for Boolean stuff, but not true for non-Boolean stuff. Am I summarizing it correctly?
Yeah, you're correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the same stuff. Arg is arg negated, just checks for if there is a prefix no here in the connect, and this just checks for if like there is no argument. Empty, this will return false, and this will negate it, so it will be true. And we are doing this for the same connections. Okay, so there are also two implementations of like setting args in like functional tests. So first of all, there is a soft set arguments. So we are soft setting it. What soft setting means is if there is like if there is some value to the RPC already, it will not change that value and will return back without soft setting to the value we would have called it with. And if there is like no value assigned or no argument assigned, then it will like assign the new value that we would like it to have and then return true. Whereas there is another method that is force set arg. So force set arg just forces upon the argument that we had passed in it to the RPC that we would like it on. So if there is like it does not care if there is some argument assigned to it or not, it will just set it to that value. So this is like the difference between these two setting of argument functions. So we are using the soft set arg here and also here. So if there is a value assigned to both of these, it will not set it and return with the false. So this is what it is expecting. And yeah, so we are checking if there is some arguments to connect, or if connect is not empty, or if the argument is not negated, then we go on and disable outgoing connections, if I'm correct. So Adderman is like the address manager for Bitcoin Core. When we are like connecting initially with Bitcoin Core, peers, like it populates the peers.dat file with the info of peers. I guess Stratosphere would know more about this. Stratosphere, can you please like tell us more about Adderman or this, just how it works?
Yeah, essentially what you just said, like it's like for example, if you're a new node, you need to find peer addresses to connect to. So where do you find peer addresses to connect to? You get that from your address manager, which is essentially the peers.dat file, and we store it in. We have like two different tables to store them, like the new table, and we also have the tried table. So when we first start a node, we ask the DNS seeds, or sometimes seed nodes which you provide in the Bitcoin config file. And there are a variety of other ways, and you ask them to send you addresses of peers it knows about, and you store all of those in your address manager. So I'm thinking what this option is. Use Adderman outgoing. Do not initiate Adderman connections when only connecting to trust. Do not initiate Adderman connections when it shouldn't be Adderman connections. Firstly, I think it should be adder fetch connections, because there is not all Adderman connections.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do not initiate Adderman connections when only connecting to trusted nodes, or when automatic connections are disabled. Okay, I'm searching what this parameter is. Use Adderman outgoing.
Yeah, so like having connect RPC just like means that we are manually adding pairs, right? So if this line will only occur if we are manually adding pairs.
Okay, manually adding pairs, we don't make adder fetch connections to them at all. Or are they saying we don't even exchange address messages?
Both of these seed node and DNS seed are like for manual corrections. So while it be ignored if we are having trusted nodes.
And one that seed node setting will be ignored if trusted nodes were specified. When the DNS seed will be ignored if automatic connections are disabled. I think the comments could do with more elaboration. Yeah, I guess you can go ahead. I will look into it.
Okay. Yeah, if somebody would like to add this as a question on the PR review, like pull request, you can do that. And this is just minus changes. We are checking if this check is removed for log level. Yeah, so debug is a Boolean based RPC. So initially it had debug is equal to 0 and no debug. But we are now removing no debug. So we have now a debug 0 and debug none to like disable this RPC. Okay, so these are mostly all the diff changes, I guess. So there's a release node. Yeah, we are checking if the signet seed nodes arguments are not empty. So signet seed node is used when we would like to connect to custom signet. We use signet challenge and signet seed node. Both of these are used for connecting to custom signets that we would like to have. And this is removed. Not sure what VB parents is. We can look into that afterwards. Yeah, so all of these are changes to check for if there are no arguments. So we are now like going into the implementation from having a prefix to like having a suffix. So this is not enough if you would check for RPC whitelist, because this arg set just checks for if there is an RPC whitelist. It is kind of a string matching algorithm that is used in argset, which we would not like to have now, because if there is a if there is a specification of is equal to 0, that would mean that this RPC is disabled, and is argument set will return true for that. So that's why this change is like introduced here. So most of these changes in this, and like RPC whitelist is used for like whitelisting a peer, and like, also there is a change in implementation, change in check for both of these RPC allow IP and RPC bind. We can look for, yeah. So RPC allow IP just lets us to like allow JSON RPC connections from particular source of this IP, and RPC binds to given address. Like it binds us to a given address to listen for all the JSON RPC connections.
I had asked a question in the
So
chat about whitelist.
yeah, so before this PR, this would like the intended behavior is uh, there would be no RPC whitelisting for that. If there is an argument, I would like to check. So RPC whitelist here. So it might be the case that that specific address that is passed with no RPC whitelist would be like not whitelisted. So like mostly it is the case that with no RPC whitelist, it disables whitelisting for all of the whitelisted candidates, and that should have happened. It should not whitelist any of the peers, like any of the nodes that we would have whitelisted. So that is whitelisting all RPC methods is not supposed to happen. Yes, yeah, like I guess you are correct in that scenario. You could check if there is an IP or some peer attached with no RPC whitelist, and you can like check if that RPC blocking is for only that node, or it is for all of the other nodes as well. So then currently your understanding is entirely correct. The PR is that is how it is supposed to happen. If that's clear. Sure. These diffs changes introduced. This check is removed. We discussed bind, so it is it just let's just specify address to be used for listening. White bind, we can check what is white bind used for. Okay, so it not only binds us to the address, binds the address to be listening. So to be listening to, it also adds some permission flags to the peers that are connecting like using that address. Yeah, that's it.
Probot, can you go through am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Can you go through these diffs like on 735 and 782? What changes are these diffs making? Initially, I mean it was accepting a parameter for white bind, right? So you either pass a parameter which could be true or false if it's a bool parameter, and in the second line it's checking whether it's empty, meaning that you've not passed any parameter at all, neither true nor false. You've not passed anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
right. So like before this PR, okay, if you don't pass any value, what happens then? Is there no check? Was there no check? Because the check only seems to be performed if there is a value, whether it's true or it's false. And for empty or for not passing a value at all, there seems to be no check.
Yeah, so I guess now the behavior of the pair is that if we are not passing any value, it would just uh, default to 1, I guess.
False or true. It should default to false if you're not passing any value, right?
So I mean, if we are not passing any value, like why would we even pass anything in that case? If we are not passing anything, like it would not get any args from this, and then it will like default to 0. Like passing any flag should mean that we are like trying to have like we are trying to use that flag in our Bitcoin conf.
Right, but I'm trying to understand the behavior before this PR. I'm trying to understand 735, the red one, all right? Because currently this PR introduces a check for empty. So if you're not passing any value at all for this flag, it checks whether a value has been passed or no. Okay, but before that you were not performing any checks for an empty value. So what if you don't pass any value? You either pass true or you pass false, right? And if you pass true or you pass false, the is arg set argument will capture that as your argument and act accordingly. What if you don't pass anything before this PR?
So what I said like before this, if we are not setting anything, that would default to 1. It just
One,
checks if it just checks if this is introduced, like this keyword is there, this RPC is there in the Bitcoin comp.
all right. All right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
What you can do is like there is an RPC called fast prune. So there are some tests written for it. You can check on some tests there. And
There is an RPC for. I didn't get you. There is an RPC for. Can you repeat?
There is an RPC called fast prune for pruning the blocks.
Okay.
So there are many tests there with that this RPC fast prune is an Boolean RPC. So it has tests that involve is equal to 0, is equal to 1, and not passing anything in the argument. So
Right.
like you can get a better idea if you look at those tests.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, so this is a new RPC with external IP. Okay, so it just lets us to that we would like every node that is there to communicate us with. So like if a node would like to add us manually, it can use that address that we have specified here, and it would like connect it to our node. So this is that RPC. Also, this diff changes what there was for others. Okay, so it just checks. Yeah, so only that gets us all the arguments that are set for only that, and if there is if it is not empty, it goes on through. Yeah, this is just another change from art set implementation. Basically, the PR author is trying to like eliminate his arg set from the code base. That is what we can like observe. It checks for if the test options are not empty and then goes on to iterate over it. Yeah, so for this OnlyNet RPC, it lets us to like make automatic outbound connections to only that network or whatever we are specifying it with. Yeah, it lets us make it like restricts the node to only accept automatic outbound connections from this network that would have been passed here. So all the networks that are all the other networks would not be considered when adding automatic outbound connections, and does not affect this inbound and manual outbound connections also. Yeah. So seed nodes also lets us to connect with a node. Like the difference between seed node and other other RPC that we talked about is that when we are connecting with a node using seed node, we just get that we get the address of all the peers of that node and then disconnect it. So we don't connect to that peer that we are passing here. We just only ask the peer for its uh, addresses of other peers and then disconnect it. So this is the main change. So with here no test and no RPC wallet are being introduced here. So the check for is negated for RPC wallet is being introduced in this section of the commit. So RPC wallet is like used when we are like using RPC, like when we are using wallets. So it lets us RPC wallet lets us to use many of the functionality that we can leverage off. So we can create wallets, we can use wallets to pay off others, we can use wallet to create transactions, and that is the main use of no RPC wallet. So the check of RPC wallet is equal to 0 is being removed here because of this. It treats it as an integer instead of a boolean, and that's why that this is being added here. Yeah, so we have completed reviewing the PR. Anybody has any
Can we
questions
read
that you
the
would like to
text?
ask?
Can we read the text on top?
Yeah.
Yeah, this just if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, no questions from my end. Thanks a lot, Robot, for hosting.
If nobody has any questions.
Now, but I do want to dig into some of the stuff you mentioned after this call.
Okay, sure. I think we can end the stream now.